everyone. Welcome to Spooky October at Briar House Writes. I'm Becky Parker. And as E.G. Marshall would say, come in. Today it is my honor to be able to welcome back Miss Sherry Poff. Sherry is the current president of the Chattanooga Writers Guild. She is an acclaimed poet and author. Sherry, welcome to our program.
Thank you so much. This is going to be fun.
Sherry, tell us a little bit about what does Halloween season mean for you?
I actually have an essay that I wrote about Halloween, and I wrote it. So the essay, it says September. I know this is going to air later, but this was born out of a trip I took in early September with my grandchildren. So I thought it would be appropriate to begin with this. It's early September. The trees still have most of their leaves. I'm picking cherry tomatoes nearly every day. It was 90 degrees last week, and already my granddaughters are planning their Halloween costumes. Over the years with these four little girls, we've seen various characters, including Curious George and the Man in the Yellow Hat, Cinderella, a pumpkin, and a green-faced witch. At least one of the four this year is going with a Star Wars theme. She's too young to really know the story and appreciate the lore, but she loves Princess Leia's look with the side buns and the white robe. I have to say, I'm surprised at what parents are willing to spend on costumes. I remember as a child trying on cheap plastic masks in the five and dime or on the back aisle of the drugstore. If I was lucky enough to find one I could both see and breathe through, I had to go home and find suitable clothes to complete the illusion. Most of the time, though, I just scrounged around and came up with an outfit. I was a coal miner, complete with genuine coal dirt, a tramp with a little bundle tied onto a stick, and a gypsy woman with a flowing skirt and lots of jewelry. My brother and sister and the other neighborhood kids had similar makeshift and, I might say, creative outfits for the big night. And maybe that's the difference. For us, it was just one big night. As the weather cooled and the idea of swimming in the creek was becoming a distant memory, we started anticipating the moonlit trek up and back down the tree-shadowed road. On October 31st, just before dark, we gathered in someone's yard, and it was always on October 31st, no matter the day of the week. Each witch or hobo had a bag of some sort to collect candy in. We took a few minutes to appreciate one another's costumes and set off. As long as we stayed in a group, we were allowed to walk far up the rural road, stopping at each house to knock and yell, "Trick or treat!" Kindly neighbors would come to the door, make a fuss over our costumes, and try to identify each of us by our real names. Occasionally, we met other groups of roving youngsters and stopped to chat before moving on. Some houses left their lights off, and we knew we shouldn't bother them, but most of the folks on the 2 mile stretch were happy to see us and shared generously. When we got home, we inspected each other's candy haul and usually made some strategic trades. Our parents told us about the visitors they'd had while we were out, and everyone got cleaned up and went to bed. It was a night of fun and adventure. In our family this year, in addition to Princess Leia, we'll have Dorothy of Oz fame, Alice from Alice in Wonderland, and a witch. But here's the thing. The kids have plans to use those costumes for 2 or 3 different events. Halloween is no longer just a night of fun. It's a series of nights, or sometimes afternoons. The church I'm a member of has a big trunk or treat event in a nearby field, and we are only one of many. I understand the reasoning behind these changes, and I mostly agree with them. It's safer to have the little ones in a more controlled environment. I certainly wouldn't want my little girls roaming the roads as I did decades ago. But while I acknowledge that some harmful pranks were carried out in the dark on Halloween, I miss the innocent fun and excitement of being out under the stars in the safety of a large group. I was the youngest of our crowd. By the time I was 12, all the older kids had aged out of the tradition, so my sister walked along with me one last time while I collected candy dressed in my homemade costume. It's a sweet memory of her kindness to me and also a somewhat melancholy recognition of a time that will never return. Maybe in some remote areas out in the country, the tradition continues. I'd like to think that's possible, but these are different times. Here's what's the same, though. There is still the thrill for children of trying out an alternate identity for a season and shamelessly asking adults for treats. The goodwill and generosity of friends and neighbors shows in the simple act of buying a bag of candy and giving it out, expecting nothing in return except the delight of perpetuating a fun tradition. As the days grow shorter, some of us don our sweaters when the sun goes down. That little nip in the air and the leaves falling from the maples in my backyard begin to stir an excitement. Soon it will be time to pull the witch hat out of the closet and go shopping for M&Ms. So I have a witch hat that I will put on for a couple of things that I'm going to read that are a little bit spooky, because while for me, I think it's obvious from what I read that I mostly just see Halloween as a time of fun. Uh, and the darker evenings and all the owls that kind of get active in the fall, there is a spookiness to it. But I've never been really into spookiness just for the sake of scaring somebody really badly. But the truth is, there are some things in our world that cannot be explained, and some of them are a little spooky. So I have written two pieces along those lines, and the first one I'm going to read is a poem from this book called "The Strange Stranger and a Strange Side of Appalachia." It's Pine Mountain Sand and Gravel, and I have one poem in here. This poem is a golden shovel. And for folks who don't know what a golden shovel is, the idea is that you take a line of poetry or maybe two lines and use each word in that line as the end of your own poem, so that if one reads down the right-hand margin, then the original work is there. So there's a poem by F.R. Higgins about Jezebel, Queen Jezebel from the Old Testament. And there's a line in there that says, "Though her ghost lacks a back, there's music in the old bones yet." So that's the line I used to make a poem about a story my dad told when I was a little girl about something that happened to him. And this poem is called "The Woman of the Woods." My daddy swore he heard her sing Amazing Grace, though he never spied the woman riding through the woods on her phantom horse. The dogs all snarled and cowered at the ghost no one could see. An incredible story, some would say. It lacks corroboration, a skeleton of proof to give it a back. I trust the word of the man who raised me. There's nothing he feared. He and his brothers heard the music, held their dogs by the collar, kept them still in the old forest. But memories are interred with their bones, and the woman of the woods is a mystery yet. So then later, I heard about Howling Hills Press. Um, Terry Shaw was putting together a group of spooky stories, and and this one is called 23 Tales: Appalachian Ghost Stories, Legends, and Other Mysteries. So I had that story that is a true story, and I wrote it up at this time as a narrative. So same story, but told with a little more detail. And this time it's called Singer in the Woods. My dad was a down to earth, tell the truth kind of man. He was the oldest of 8 brothers, and they all grew up hoeing a row almost as soon as they could hold the tools. He spent 4 grueling years in the Army during World War II and returned home to the coal mines. By the time I was old enough to hear the story I am retelling here, Daddy had been a Baptist deacon and a Sunday school teacher for more than a decade. Though he was a jokester and loved to spin a tale, Daddy always got serious when recounting this story. Dad and his brothers were fox hunters, the kind who camp out all night on a mountaintop, sitting around a fire, listening to the dogs run the fox, and calculating whose hound is leading by each one's distinguishing bark. Their dad, my grandpa Sherman, passed along his love of the chase to his sons, and they found frequent opportunities to take a break from work on the farm to enjoy this recreation in their native hills of southern West Virginia. One evening in late spring, Daddy and a couple of his brothers were leading the hounds along a dirt road through the woods, headed for their favorite campsite, when they heard singing. Stopping the dogs to listen, the brothers recognized the song, Amazing Grace. The clear notes of a woman's voice were accompanied by the clip clop of a horse's hooves and seemed to be not far behind them on the road. After a short conversation, the young men decided to lead their dogs into the woods so as not to spook the horse. They descended the bank below the road and waded among the trees and leaf litter for the rider to pass. With a clear view of the road, the trio waited and watched expectantly as the sounds of singing and hoofbeats drew ever closer. When the singer was seemingly right above them on the road, the dogs began straining at their leashes and whimpering, eyes fixed on the roadway. The men, however, did not see what their ears were telling them should have been there. Neither the horse nor the rider was visible to the men. They still heard the strains of the old hymn. They clearly discerned the horse's footfall on the roadway, but they did not see any living being pass by. As the sounds faded away, men and dogs scurried back up the bank and into the road, where they saw no sign of anyone's passing. Years later, my dad still told this story in hushed tones and with tears brimming his eyes. He never tried to offer an explanation for this strange encounter, but his belief in the event was steadfast. We had trouble holding the dogs, he explained. They seemed to see something we couldn't see, or maybe they were just as confused as we were. One thing is sure, we didn't imagine it. Something was there. So that story, all for years I've thought about that story. There are unexplained things in the world, and sometimes they seem kind of scary. So if you like that kind of thing, this might be a book you want to get. And they've done 24 and now 25 because each it goes with the year. So this is the only collection I've been in, but they're great stories.
Sherry,
And
is that available on Amazon through
you know
Howling
what,
Hill
Becky?
Press?
I believe it is. It's Howling Hills Publishing, and I'm I'll bet it is available on Amazon, but I just got mine directly from Howling Hills, so I don't know for sure. But anyway, it's a great collection that, and it will give you a few chills if you read it. Okay, so this is in if you can see, I hope you can see, it originally appeared in Stone Poetry Quarterly, and it's called Displaced. The house we lived in has been razed, releasing memories within its walls. The night we both had the flu, the day I burned the eggs, our baby's first cries, childish laughter, and soft hand claps for Christmas lights strung on the bed. On a long summer evening, I drove up the old lane, listened in vain for voices drifting among the trees, strained my eyes for a figure waiting patiently on abandoned concrete steps. The ghostly yard shimmered in the half light, tangled vines, mute piles of dirt. Finally, at the top of the hill, memory found me standing in darkness on a neighbor's vacant porch overlooking the silent street. That poem, you know, it it really did come to me, a vision sort of in a dream of
Mm.
myself on that porch looking at the street, and that was the origin of that. And then I have one more poem I'd like to share with you, and this one is originally was in Rockvale Review, and it's a poem about November. And I know this is October, but I thought the tone would fit with the fall season. And this might look a little small to people, but I will read it. It's called November Morning. We woke to killing frost. Begonias bowed their heads beside the last bright vines, green only yesterday. At day's end, darkness settles around weeping blooms. At the bottom of the hill, a sturdy oak stands ready to catch the moon as it falls. And the origin of that poem is that I love to take walks. I'm going to remove my hat now. I love to take walks, and as I was walking, and seeing the moon come up over the hill, there was a tree there that had lost its leaves, and it really did look as if that tree was just ready to um, catch the moon. That's the way it looked to me. And I think autumn is such a great time for writing because there are so many beautiful images with the changing of the seasons, and so much going on that it's a really great time to be creative. So I thank you for letting me share these things with you today, Becky.
Well, Sherry, are you currently working on any more anthology projects to submit regarding this type of season?
I just looked this morning to see, who's accepting things right now, and I do have a lot of things I'm just kind of thinking about. One thing I really would love to do is get together a chapbook. Somebody suggested to me that I have a lot of work that involves water, and I might put together something about that. And so I'm looking into, you know, what other things I might do. But there is so much to write about. Everywhere we look, there there is no shortage of material out there So, yeah, and fall is particularly evocative, I think. So, yeah, I'm looking at some things.
Unless you are involved in the spooky aspect of Halloween and this season, which is writer's block. Oh.
that, that does feel spooky, but it can be overcome.
It can. I totally agree. Sherry, you did a wonderful job, and thank you so much for sharing with us today. Really appreciate
You're
it.
so welcome. I appreciate the opportunity.